What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so my last video, I had a news article laid out, but I kind of laid it out just talking about it, right? But, you know, I'm not going to do that this time, y'all. We've got, as a matter of fact, check this out. House GOP adopts Trump budget blueprint after last-minute scramble. Now, once again, I apologize for that last video for not reading any news. I'm not going to do that this time. We are going to scramble through this thing, and then we're going to discuss afterwards. So, y'all let me know if y'all like this setup, if y'all want me to just read through the freaking news and then talk about it afterwards, or if y'all like the traditional setup, if you will, the traditional blueprint to how I structure my videos, if you will. Let's get into it. House Republicans on Thursday adopted the Senate's framework that will be used to enact key parts of President Trump's legislative agenda, getting the blueprint over the finish line after a last-minute scramble to win over conservatives who had spent days railing against the measure. Yeah, that's right. The largely party line 216-214 vote marks a big win for Speaker Mike Johnson, who has pushed an aggressive timeline to advance Trump's domestic policy priorities, and President Trump, who endorsed the legislation and lobbied those on the right flank to get on board. Only two Republicans, Reps Thomas Massie and Victoria Spartz, voted against the measure. Yeah, Thomas Massie always votes against anything that has anything to do with spending. It was a good day in the House, Johnson told reporters after the vote. I told you not to doubt us. The media always does. The Democrats always do. But we get the job done, and we're really grateful to have had the big victory on the floor just now. It was not, however, an easy path to success for the GOP leadership. More than a dozen hardline House conservatives had come out against the Senate resolution, vowing to vote against the legislation if it came to the floor. Yeah, if it came to the floor out of concern over the level of spending cuts mandated in the measure, despite Trump's continued pressure to back the measure. Yeah, the House was actually proposing $1.4 trillion in spending cuts, and the Senate only proposed $4 billion. Absurd. Yeah, I like the 1.4 a whole lot better. That opposition forced Johnson to yank a planned vote on the measure Wednesday night. As leadership held open an unrelated vote for almost 90 minutes, Johnson huddled in a room off the House floor with several of the conservative holdouts in an unsuccessful attempt to secure their support, prompting the delay. The linchpin of the leadership's effort appeared to be in a joint press appearance Thursday morning by Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune, where the pair delivered brief remarks regarding spending cuts. The hardliners were incensed that the budget resolution directed Senate committees to find far fewer spending cuts than House panels, at least $1.5 trillion, compared to at least $4 billion, worried that the upper chamber would reign supreme. So yeah, pretty much the entirety of the Freedom Caucus was like, what? $4 billion? That's it? Yeah, leave it to the rhinos in the Senate, y'all. During their remarks, Johnson committed to including at least $1.5 trillion in cuts, while Thune said the Senate was aligned with the House in terms of what their budget resolution outlined in terms of savings. Remarks that stopped short of a firm commitment, but were encouraging enough to House hardliners to get them on board. Still, passage remained far from a sure thing. Though members of the Freedom Caucus expressed cautious optimism, a group continued to meet even as the vote took place on the floor. Johnson, at the same time, huddled on the House floor with moderate Republicans who had expressed unease about the effects of severe spending cuts. You know, I'm sorry, I'm going to interject right quick. These squishy Republicans can't not see, for some reason, that we cannot maintain 1.5, 1.8, 1 point whatever trillion dollar deficit spending. We just can't do that. It is absurd. That's why I say we need all new congressmen, y'all. After the vote, members of the conservative House Freedom Caucus said they received assurances from Johnson, Thune, and the White House that significant spending cuts will be included in the final bill. We have now three strong statements from the Speaker, the President, and the Senate Majority Leader, Rep. Chip Roy, my favorite congressman, by the way, flanked by other hardliners, told reporters. We do not have those 48 hours. We do now. Oh, We did not have those 48 hours ago. We do now. Sorry about that, y'all. The first time publicly the Senate leader has come out and actually said that we're in the same ballpark with the House and Senate reductions. Rep. Andy Harris, the chair of the conservative House Freedom Caucus, told The Hill. Obviously, we were happy with the House spending reduction because we all voted for it, so I think that's a step in a positive direction. The successful vote puts a bookend on the first phase of the budget reconciliation process, which Republicans are hoping to use to advance Trump's domestic policy priorities. The process allows the Senate to bypass Democratic buy-in by working around the 60-vote filibuster. The initial part of the procedure requires both chambers adopting a resolution, which acts as instructions for the rest of the process. Interesting, that is, isn't it? Now, however, the even tougher part begins. Republicans in both chambers must craft a package that is in line with the levels laid out in the budget resolution and make decisions on a number of hot-button issues like spending cuts, how long the tax cuts are extended for, and the cap on the state and local tax deduction, among other details. In a sign of the treacherous waters ahead, a band of moderate House Republicans huddled with Johnson on the floor for an extended period of time ahead of Thursday's vote, during which the group discussed how the party would approach Medicaid as it begins writing the final Trump agenda bill. The adopted budget resolution directs the House Energy and Commerce Committee to find at least $880 billion in spending cuts, which many moderates worry will require deep slashes to Medicaid, a non-starter for them. Why not? I just don't get this fervent rejection of cuts to Medicaid. I don't get that. There are many people on Medicaid that do not deserve to be on Medicaid. We currently cannot afford nationwide health care. We cannot afford Medicaid. We cannot afford Medicare, and we cannot afford Social Security, as a matter of fact. It's just insane, these people. The entirety of the federal government is funded in a deficit. Yeah, I think some entitlements could go. And maybe some of that federal funding could go as well. You can't get $1.5 trillion out of just cutting the federal government. Not when the entire federal government is funded in a deficit. Sorry. The comments on Thursday about finding at least $1.5 trillion in cuts appeared to exacerbate those concerns. We just wanted to be clear again with the Speaker, as we've had numerous times before, that we will not vote for something that strips benefits from seniors and our vulnerable population that rely on traditional Medicaid services, said Rep. Nicole Malliotakis, who was part of the conversation on the floor. Now let's let the real negotiation begin, and we will fight it out for our seniors and our vulnerable, and of course our New Yorkers who deserve to have relief from the salt, she added. The adopted budget resolution, which was crafted after House and Senate Republicans advanced their own contrasting blueprints, seek to extend Trump's 2017 tax cuts, with many provisions set to expire at the end of the year, in addition to raising the debt limit, appropriating money for the border, and enacting energy policy. Senate Republicans adopted their own budget resolution in February, which utilized a two-bill strategy, the first bill including border and energy, and the second covering tax cuts. Shortly after, however, the House GOP conference cleared a budget resolution for one big beautiful bill, as Republicans and Trump referred to it, encompassing all the priorities. Last week, Senate GOP leaders released a compromise version, which was adopted in both chambers. Johnson has been pushing an aggressive timeline for getting the bill to Trump's desk, hoping to do so by Memorial Day. Underscoring that path is a looming deadline to raise the debt limit, which the Congressional Budget Office said could come in August or September. Time is of the essence, Johnson said after the vote. We know what's going on around the world. We know that the debt limit cliff is approaching pretty quickly here. We know that markets have been a little unstable. A little unstable? You mean a lot unstable. They want to know that Congress is on the job, and I'm here to tell you that we are. Yeah, don't give us that nonsense. We're going to do our job, and we're going to provide stability, and we're going to send this message to all of our allies and friends around the world and to our adversaries that America is back and the America First agenda will be enacted, he added. That's actually a bad sign to everybody around the world, because under the Biden administration, we were subsidizing God knows how many countries with millions and millions and hundreds of millions, if not billions, of dollars. So what does that tell the rest of the world, Johnson? Yeah, that tells them that, America first means America first. And if all of our government is funded in a deficit, that means, America's going to come first and no money for them. That's what that tells them, Johnson, by the way. It remains unclear how much Republicans will vote to raise the debt limit by. The budget resolution included a $4 trillion debt ceiling hike for the House and a $5 trillion increase for the Senate. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot, but that's kind of insane. And that's only kicking the can down the road. We can't just keep raising the debt limit, y'all. It's insane. While the House ultimately adopted the Senate's budget resolution, the successful vote did not come without tension in the GOP ranks. Rep. Derek Van Orden said he briefly voted in opposition, bringing the total number of no votes to 3, the maximum Johnson could afford to lose before switching to yes. He said his vote was a shot over the bow at the House Freedom Caucus over his frustration with them dragging out negotiations, a sign of the friction within the House GOP conference that will likely only increase as the reconciliation process continued. I will personally sabotage every single thing the Freedom Caucus does until they get their mind right, Van Orden said. And I would ask any of you guys out there that happen to know this guy, let's primary this dude, by the way. Let's primary him right on out the door. Any Republican that is not in the Freedom Caucus can go bye-bye, as a matter of fact. As a matter of fact, there's some Freedom Caucus members that need to go as well. Right? There's only about 10 that I actually like, that are actually okay. Chip Roy being top among those. But, because Chip Roy is just a hulk. I just love how the guy, his voting record is not, it wouldn't be my voting record essentially, but what I like about Chip Roy is he has no problems getting out on the House floor and embarrassing not only Democrats, but Republicans alike.
What table does he want us to come sit down and negotiate? It's not this table. I don't have the power to offer an amendment on the floor of the House of Representatives, despite being elected by 750,000 Texans. I don't have the ability or the right to be able to stand up for them and have a debate on the floor of this chamber. Everything the American people is watching right now is a complete sham. It's a fraud being perpetrated on the American people right before their eyes. Right as we head into Christmas, sitting here on the 23rd of December, when 6 years ago, those boys crossed the Delaware. We were dealing with Valley Forge, or the boys in 1944 sitting in foxholes in Bastogne over Christmas. And we had 18 Republicans who joined with Democrats in the Senate, get on their fancy planes and go home, and we're sitting here trying to do the work of the people. Not spend money we don't have, not drive up more inflation, not have 7,500 earmarks for $16 billion for pet leftist projects across this country. What you see here on the floor of the House of Representatives should make everybody ashamed. The People's House. Not one amendment has been offered on the floor of this body since May of 2016 in open debate. The gentleman from Massachusetts dares to impugn the character of the Appropriations Chairwoman Kay Granger and those Republicans he says won't sit at the table, when in fact, what you see here is a 4,100-page bill cooked up by a handful of people behind closed doors, brought before the Rules Committee with no ability to offer an amendment, no ability to debate, no actual discussion on the People's House floor. And my colleagues on the other side of the aisle know it. And we're spending money we don't have. Go home and sell your projects. Go home and talk about all the pork you're bringing home. But you're destroying the United States of America. Absolutely destroying this body. The American people did not send us here to do that. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle know that. my colleagues on the other side of the aisle know full well that this body is broken, but do not care.
That's a good thing, railing against your own party for bonehead spending maneuvers. He always rails against all these spending bills because they're ridiculous, folks, because we're spending in a deficit and we can't continue to do this. We can't continue to raise the debt limit. It is absurd that we've been doing it for as long as we have and somehow are getting away with it, right? Inflation has been exacerbated by government spending. A lot of people love to blame inflation on Biden, and sure, like I was even chief among those, if you will, because the Biden administration knew, as a matter of fact, because the Trump administration made them aware that there was a supply chain problem coming because of shutting down the damn economy, as a matter of fact. And the Biden administration did nothing to alleviate the issues with the supply chain that we had, causing inflation to freaking skyrocket, as a matter of fact. Sure, I know, and I love Democrats when they get out there and say, well, he brought it back down faster than everybody else in the world. Yeah, when you have the largest economy and you have the best supply chain in the world, of course, it's going to get back on its feet much faster. That is not an accomplishment on Joe Biden. That is absolutely not an accomplishment for Joe Biden, and I can't believe they actually got out there and touted Joe Biden's accomplishments on this. Joe Biden exacerbated all the problems with the government, as a matter of fact. Increased spending like beyond belief, right? Because when Donald Trump's last year, his last fiscal year in office, the deficit was $984 billion, which is high. Sure, I get it. Right, but, it was a lot lower than what Obama's was for his first 4 years. Obama did okay because he actually, I think his fifth year, got it down to about $400 billion. But once again, the next year, it rose up. It shot up to $700 billion. And then $800 billion. And then Trump comes in, enacts these tax cuts, and all of a sudden it shoots up to $900 billion. Well, hang on. Those tax cuts were a lot more than just $150 billion. So they reduced spending in the government. Yeah, they reduced a little bit of spending. So Trump did good as far as that aspect. Sure, you're going to have a high deficit, but, Donald Trump just kind of kept government spending at the same. But, Joe Biden comes in after COVID, after, what was that, $2.2 trillion spending package that Donald Trump signed off on, as a matter of fact, for COVID, to get relief to COVID, for COVID or whatever. Joe Biden comes in, COVID is waning, and what does he do? He increases spending. Hey, let's get another stimulus package going here. We didn't need another stimulus package. That was the boneheaded maneuver. I was actually griping about Trump when that first stimulus package. Like, what are you doing? Sending $2,000 to everybody. What is that going to actually do? Nothing. It didn't do anything. It didn't stimulate the economy. Like, that's what the thinking was, right? It's going to stimulate the economy. No, people held on to that money and paid rent with it, paid their bills with it, because a lot of people couldn't go to work. It's ridiculous, y'all. But Joe Biden increases all this spending, and, it wasn't just for while COVID was still around. No. And he didn't reduce spending. No. What did Joe Biden do after COVID spending was done with? No, he increased it more, as a matter of fact. Then it shot up from $1.5 trillion to $1.7 trillion, and then $1.8 trillion, and would have been $2.2 trillion if not for the Supreme Court stopping his ridiculous student debt relief program, which was absurd. He went and did it anyway, not nearly to the extent that he was planning, but he still did it. It's just absurd with these people. I don't understand how any of these congressmen can sign off on deficit spending, right? Thomas Massie is the only congressman that always votes against spending. If it's in a deficit, And it always is, because we've been spending in a deficit since 1998, I believe, or 1999. Yes, that is how long the government has been spending in a deficit. 26 years. That's absurd, y'all. And it can't continue like that. And it's just getting crazy. And I've rambled for a long time. So y'all got the news. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this. That's all I got on this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.